Welcome to another show. I'm Sid, or am I a bird? Or am I a plane? Well, actually, it's neither. I'm just Sid. But welcome to the video. In this tutorial, I'll be showing you how to create Superman's logo stuck to my forehead from 3D primitive shapes available for free in the Spark AR library. I've taken a couple of diamonds here and the Spark AR logo S shape and crushed them down to 2D, laid them flat on top of one another, recolored them, and then added a pulsing animation here that just kind of makes the S pop out of my head. Pretty simple, kind of basic. There's not too much going on here, and if you're already familiar with Spark, you may want to skip this video, but there's always something to be learned, and if you're new, you could consider this an introduction to 3D primitive shapes. They can be used to make a lot more than just this, but I thought, considering this video has been on my list to make for a long ass time now, that I would just get it out of the way and explain the fundamentals of using 3D models, albeit in a 2D fashion. So yeah, let's just jump straight into it, or leap across tall buildings in a single bound. I don't know. Let's get started. Hey, what's up? It's Sid from the future. I just finished editing this video and I wanted to jump back here real quick and warn you that the final result is not exactly like the preview I just showed. So maybe skip ahead, see if you like it, and then come back and watch the rest. I understand if you want to skip it though. It's not my best video, and I spent an hour and a half troubleshooting just to eventually give up and pivot to something else. It's still Superman, it's still the same basic fundamental tutorial, but with some slight tweaks. So if you're dissatisfied, I understand, and I promise I'll try and make a better video next time. Also, the links will be in the description for the original preview and the final result for free for you to download and try out for yourself. Where was I again? Okay, here we are, new project, switch to 2D mode, open up the patch editor. I feel like this should be automatically split in half when you open the patch editor, but make a little space for yourself, scale the screen up a little bit, and now we're going to right click in the scene and add a face tracker. So now we're going to go to the library and select from 3D shapes. You can also access it here from the featured tab, but just for the purposes of showing you where it is, we're going to select the 3D shapes menu, and here is a drop down of all the primitive shapes that you can import into your scene, including the face distortion pack, which is the one you use to make your eyes big or your nose or your mouth, things like that. But for the purposes of a Superman logo, we're going to be using this diamond primitive, so I'm going to import that. And we're also going to be using the Spark AR S, so the Spark logo primitive, so import that as well. You can go through, look at all the different shapes, play around with them. There's a lot you can do in here, to be honest. There's also one for the eyeball, hearts, very simple stuff, but you can combine these to make a bunch of complex shapes as well. Those will all appear down here in your assets panel. You can drop them down. You can see the object in each and then also the material for each one. Now what we're going to do is right click in the scene and add a null object. This is basically like a nesting object, which will contain all of the other objects, the spark and the diamond and everything that we add later on. Next, we're going to right click the null object and add a face tracker nested inside of that. Then we're going to take our diamond, drag that inside of here, rename it to diamond large, because we're going to have two layers to our diamond pattern, and then we'll take the exact same diamond and drag it in for a second time. It will duplicate the item, and we're going to rename that diamond small. And now we're going to do the same thing for the spark, the S shape, so drag that in and it will appear nested underneath. Now we're going to take the diamond large, and if I just pause the screen when it's pretty central, zoom in a little bit. Now what we can do is scale this up slightly. So on the X-axis we can scale it up to 1.5, scale the Y up to 1.5. You can also do this here with these options. So this one's for scale, and if you grab this square in the center, then you can scale it up proportionately. You can also grab each line individually, and so for example, scale this up on the Y-axis or the X-axis and end up with some pretty interesting shapes. I'll go back to the way it was. We'll leave it at 1.5 and 1.5, which I've changed over here in the right-hand properties menu. Same exact thing, just two different ways of doing it. I'm also going to change the Z-axis, so I'm going to reduce that down until it's completely flat. I could have done that over here as well, but like I say, two different ways of doing the same thing. Now I'm going to scale it up again because it doesn't seem like it's large enough. We'll go to 2 and 2. And then what I'm going to do is switch over to movement here. And I'm just going to drag that and reposition it up above on the forehead. Now I'm going to drop down this menu here, and under the diamond, I'm going to create a new material for it, which I'm going to rename diamond large. And I'm actually going to delete this diamond material that we had originally because we no longer need it. You'll be able to tell that it's gone because the checkerboard patterns appeared on the other diamond. So now I'm going to drop that one down, and I'm going to create a new material for that because there's no longer one selected. Create a new material, rename that to diamond small, and now we can change the color of each one. So this outside one here is going to be blue because that's what Superman's logo looks like, and this inside one here is going to be yellow. So I'll change that to be yellow. Now I'm going to do the same thing I did with the original blue one here. I'm going to scale it all the way in. So we'll select the scale here and then push it all the way in, and I'm going to reposition it. So drag it up and fit it inside of here. scale it to a proportional size that fits, that you're comfortable with, maybe 1.5, and then just reposition it, maybe even like, I don't know, 1.75. We have a little bit of outside blue, and then mostly it's going to be yellow in here. And then you'll see there is actually a little bit of clipping. You'll notice it more when I move, when I allow the camera to move and zoom out. So what you can do is take the position here, which is set as 0 and 0, and you can bring the yellow one forward very, very slightly to something like 0.001. And now there's less of that clipping. It might not be immediately visible on my display through the video, but when you're testing this out, you will probably notice a little bit of clipping. That's one way of solving it. If you want to bring it all the way forward, you can have it at like 0.1 and see now it's all the way out, because these are still 3D shapes, so you can move them around in X, Y, and Z coordinate space. But we'll leave that as it is at 0.001, whereas the diamond large is at 0. So it's very, very slightly in front. Now I'm also gonna change the color of this, but I don't need to create a new material for it because we only have one S shape. So what I'm gonna do is change the color of this to be a nice dark red, and then I can position it all the way up here and fit it inside of this S. So if we play it, let it go back to a kind of central area, somewhere like there. Now we can make sure that everything's looking good. I'm pretty happy with that. Although again, I'm gonna move it forward slightly on the Z axis for position. So we have 0 here, 0.001. So this one can be 0.002. And I think you will have noticed it there. I'll go back and there, you'll see the clipping between the lines of the geometry. And then if I go back to 0.002, those lines are gone, and now each thing is on its own distinct layer. Maybe I'll bring it forwards very, very slightly more. I think that split is supposed to be there actually, but yeah. Play around with it until you're happy with the result. Hit play and you see how things look. Pretty sweet, huh? I know it's very basic and I'm just playing around with simple geometry and it doesn't really look like Superman's logo, but like I said, you can do this with any 3D object. You can combine them together, adjust the shape, scale, rotation, and come up with new compound objects essentially, which can be floating around your scene using the keyframe patch, or just appearing and disappearing using opacity, things like that. So once you learn the basics of this, you can apply it to a whole bunch of other stuff, and that's why I wanted to show it off in this video. Okay, so I've been trying to figure this out for an hour now, troubleshooting, but I cannot recreate the original project that I showed you at the start of the video. I've made it once, and I'll scroll over and I'll show you. Here it is. Also, here I am. How's it going? Yeah, so we have the null object here with the face tracker nested inside of it. All three of our objects, the two diamonds and the spark S shape, they're all set up in the exact same way. And then what I was going to show you next is if you click this action button up here, then you can animate and you can select from this drop down menu whether you want the S to spin, float in place, blink, which is like reappear and disappear, or pulse, which is what I have here. So this is all set up. I adjusted some of these values originally so that it would fit inside of here. And as you can see, it's scaling in and out from the center of the S, which is great, which is exactly what I want. But I cannot for the life of me get that to work again in this project. So if I do it, if I show you, I'll add the spark, action, animate, and then pulse. And you can already see it's kind of off. So if I drag it up here, you think, oh, maybe that's gonna work. And then I'll hit play. And you see the effect immediately is really bizarre. So what I'm gonna do is change this value here, the Z, so that it stays on the same Z axis, but it doesn't change anything. It doesn't affect it at all. I can move it down to 0 and it kind of starts blinking and freaking out. So I always just take it back to 1. And you think maybe you wanna change some of these other values. Maybe you just have it go to 1 and 1. But no matter what I do, I cannot quite get it to expand from the center and expand back in. You can kind of tell what's happening, right? It looks like it's growing from the bottom. Like it's growing in the same proportional scale, but it's not scaling from the center, which is irritating and I can't figure it out. So at the last minute, at the 11th hour, I've decided to change this effect. I'm gonna switch over to the FaceTime camera here and you'll see it again. It's just not doing what I want. So So I'm going to delete this. We're going to go back to normal. Actually, I'm going to undo. That way everything is, yeah, central again and looking pretty sweet. So what I'm going to show you instead is something similar, but not exactly the same. So we're going to add a loop animation and we're going to connect out from the progress. We're going to add a transition. So it's essentially the same thing as the animate pulse, but we're doing it manually now. We still have a vector 3 transition. Now I'm going to take the spark. I'm going to add the scale here and I'm going to get it all connected up. It's freaking out, but that's only because our Z-axis and all of our start values are set to 0. So if we change that, everything's 1 and 1, so it's going through a loop but not actually adjusting itself or changing anything. Now what I'm going to do is change the Z value, the Z, from 1 to 10, and you'll see what happens. It kind of pushes itself out of my forehead now. I'm going to mirror it so that it's more smooth. So it's going in, it's pushing itself out, kind of like a button. I wish I could have done it the other way. I wish I could have showed you scaling, but even with this, if I scale it up now to 1.25, then it pushes itself out in a very strange way. It's not scaling, you can tell instantly, right? It's not scaling centrally, and I'll scroll back over here to demonstrate the point, that this is scaling up so perfectly that you can predict where it's gonna go. It's you know what I mean? You can see it. And I swear I've tried troubleshooting this for literally an hour and a half. Well, closer to an hour, but very long time, an unreasonable amount of time for a video that most people won't watch anyway. But yeah, I figured I had to finish it. I had to show you something. I apologize, and I will be leaving a link in the description to this original version of the project, so feel free to download it, try it out for yourself, see if it works for you, let me know in the comments if it works for you, and try to recreate it maybe. I don't know. I've even, like, all of these values in here, I've recreated, I've copied it. Like, it's just not working. I've adjusted the coordinates. My mind is fried. I don't understand. I feel like Superman laser beamed me in the forehead and I just can't figure this out anymore. So this was my original vision that I wanted to show you, and this is what we ended up with. Wait, this is the one. I think this looks pretty cool as well. It's like a button going in and out, turning a 2D object into a 3D object. So still, there's something to it, but I'm sorry to disappoint you. Please don't like this video. I don't deserve it. My disappointment is immeasurable and my day is ruined. Hopefully most of you see the clip I'm about to record and throw in at the start of the video, where I warn you that this goes pretty heavily off the rails and I fail in teaching you the thing I set out to teach. But yeah, maybe subscribe, because sometimes I make better videos than this and you never know. With that being said, I'm going to end this video now before I embarrass myself anymore. So I'll catch you in the next one. Peace. Hey, did you know I have a Gumroad page where some of the filters I make are available for sale? Check the link in the description for more details. I also have a Patreon where you can get them at a discounted rate and help support the channel.